Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's a job. Coming to me off the back of somebody else's tragedy.
Wow.
Not bad, huh?
So what's with the stage? Have you forgotten what kind of movie we're making?
Set. Action.
Lord have mercy.
All kinds of messed up stuff happened when they were making movies like The Omen or The Exorcist. And the guy your dad replaced? Everything's cursed.
With my father's voice.
Tony, it's okay. You're okay, all right?
How did I get out of here?
So you're blacking out again? What is it this time?
This is something else.
He's off his meds. He's erratic. Father, what do I do?
I was saved once. Didn't believe that it could happen again.
Can he be saved?
It's not worth saving, and you know it.
I know you're afraid. Me too. It's all right to be afraid. Have faith. He will protect his children. When it happens, run.
Nasty Neal at the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head, and I'm joined by Ryan Simpkins, Lee Miller of The Exorcism, coming out June 21st. So, you obviously play opposite Russell Crowe as your dad, and there's like a lot of history hinted at and some overtly, but do you and Russell spend a lot of time before the movie, like going over like the actual backstory between your two characters?
Yeah, Russell and I have actually known each other for a really long time. He's been like a longtime family friend. He threw my 18th birthday party. Like he's just always been a part of my life. And so a lot of our chemistry was really natural. We were familiar with each other. And so a lot of that relationship was pre-existing, which was great. As far as between the characters, we had some rehearsal time, which is really a gift. And a couple of meetings just to talk about where both of our characters were at in terms of, how Lee grew up, the relationship with her mother who had recently passed. But a lot of, our characters have this natural chemistry. Obviously, they're father and daughter, but they're keeping a lot from each other. And they don't necessarily always see where the other person is coming from. So a lot of that stayed within ourselves, and we really just played off of the chemistry. But we made sure we were familiar with, like the basic story is like her mom died and he wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we were coming from.
Yeah. And I think it's important in a movie, either about fantasy or supernatural, if you believe it or whatever, to keep that ground in reality, because then you can, that the other stuff is more believable then.
I completely agree. I think you need to set it in a familiar place, and come at it as naturally and as true and honest as possible, so that everything else you buy it.
Yeah. And your characters really, there's a lot of layers there, because it's not like she, she's totally on board with, she's obviously supports her dad, but there's also stuff that's frustrating about him.
Yeah, completely. I think she's coming at this relationship from a place of like betrayal. Like her mother died and he was absent. And I think she found herself having to take care of her mom and raise herself. But she wants this relationship to work. She wants him to be there for her. And so she tries to give him every opportunity to do well. But in doing so, she finds herself parenting her parent, which is a really tragic thing and a tragic place to be in. And I think it makes him sad too. You know,
Yeah,
he wants to be there, and you want this relationship to work. I think it's the hope that drives the movie.
And it's really interesting, Russell Crowe in this character, because he's the one that doesn't have the power in almost all the relationships in the movie, and you normally see him as a lot of presence.
I know. I love that about our movie, and I love that for him. Like, I think it's amazing that he took that it's kind of a risk. You know, he's a gladiator, and in this movie, he finds himself in like a place of being a victim, and being rescued by like a young queer woman. And I like that about our film, and that, you know, this tradition of exorcist films is normally like a young woman who's powerless and a man in power saving her, but we kind of flipped it. And there's also scary moments where we do see like how scary a man's power is, you know, against these women, but then it's these women standing up and trying to fix things.
Yeah. And how about your relationship in the movie with Chloe Bailey? How did you think that came across?
I think she's the best. I was really passionate about that. It's like you said, you know, you need these moments of realism to ground everything. I think you also need moments of levity to care about these people and to see them as real people.
So once things happen, like you know, then you actually care about it.
Exactly. You need to care about it. You need to hope that these people exist or survive. I mean, and I think that queerness just adds to that, you know, those themes of, you know, the position women find themselves in these films and in the film industry. And Chloe was just the best to work with. She's so sweet and so good.
And I thought it was done really well in the movie, that the only time it's brought up in a negative light is from something that is evil. And so I just think that's important in the movie. And
we really,
and it's not hitting you over the head, I think, either.
We wanted to make sure that it felt natural and honest to these characters, but it was also never represented in a light that was like too negative or too sexual. We never wanted it to be the scary thing, you know? Like, that's the thing. That's the safe place in the movie. And you want that safe place to exist.
So I really like The Exorcism, not just because I'm talking to you. So I hope people check it out June 21st. And I think Exorcist movies are hard to pull off because you have a really big one from many years ago, but this one's much different, and I really dug it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. Hey, it's Nasty Neal at the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head. And I'm joined by Adam Goldberg, Peter of The Exorcism. So what was it like working opposite of Russell Crowe? And not only just that, but he's someone with like big presence, but you really have the power over him in the movie.
That's true. Yeah. Well, Russell reached out, you know, we did Beautiful Mind together however many years ago, and he reached out saying that, you know, he wanted me to play this role, and would I take a look at the script, and I did. And you know, he felt strongly that, you know, he needed someone who could, you know, basically do exactly what you say. And I guess he thought of me. I don't know. Make of that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever want to be on a set of yours if that's how you direct the film.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess he knew I had it in me somewhere. So there you have it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think some of the techniques you use to get the performance out his character is seen as a good thing in some movies, but you know, in this one, it's not really a great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's taking the sort of you know, I guess the Stanislavski method of directing and acting, you know, to obviously an unholy place in this case, but definitely an unsafe place. And you know, I think that, you know, it's interesting because I mean, I think the film is ultimately about ego, and it's about an exorcism of, you know, the self in some ways. And, you know, you have on the one hand this director who is an absolute megalomaniac, who's willing to sort of do whatever at any price in order to get a performance out of somebody. And then you have on the other hand this guy who's, you know, putting his ego kind of before everything else, and the, you know, the well-being, I think, in many ways of well, both himself and his daughter. And you know, I think there's you know, that's very much what I think being in this industry is kind of like, you know, sadly.
So when you play that character, do you, in your mind, you see him as a villain?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think anybody who acts like that is a villain. I mean, I don't think there's any. Yeah, I mean, I mean, both, you know, I see him, you know, and just in terms of, you know, just sort of script analysis, it was very clear to me that he was the kind of antagonist and the sort of you know, the person who sort of catalyzes his unraveling. So I mean, I think that was the sort of point of his role. But yeah, just in terms of just like a personality, I think that, you know, while maybe not evil, certainly, it's, you know, he's sinfully egomaniacal, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that ever hard to balance though? Because like I think if you go too over the top with it, I don't think it would work in the movie.
No, I mean, I think it was grounded in, yeah, I mean, I tried to ground it in, you know, things I've experienced, you know, as someone who's been around, I guess, this industry for, you know, 30 plus years now.
And are you a believer of exorcisms, supernatural, anything like that?
No, I mean, I'm a believer of, you know, like good therapy and inner demons, but which I think is really what the film is kind of about. But you know, and obviously the vehicle for that in this case is this genre, but no. The short answer is no.
Yeah. And was there any inspiration from any, you don't have to say their names, but any particular directors you've worked with, or is it just kind of like an amalgamation of that?
Yeah, I think it was probably just an amalgamation of maybe the worst character. But, you know, honestly, you know, sometimes you look at something and it's just very on the page, and it's just, yeah, honestly, I didn't have to think, you know, much about it.
Yeah. Well, I thought your scenes with Russell's some of the most powerful stuff in the movie, and people should check out The Exorcism.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, you too. Nasty Neal at the station of decapitation without your head, and I'm joined by director and co-writer Joshua John Miller and co-writer M.A. Fortin of The Exorcism, coming out June 21st. So I really dug the Exorcism. I think it's hard to pull off an Exorcist movie, you know, because you have a big one from the past. But this is much different, and I really like that so much of it's grounded in reality, and I think that's important when you have a movie, you know, that has a lot of supernatural elements in it.
I think that was the intention. I think definitely we wanted to make something that felt it was about relationships between people.
Yeah.
And by the way, if we could have done it, I'd have just kept the whole movie that way. I mean, because how do you compete with any other? How do you compete with the original? You know. But I think you know, obviously you have to have some scares. But I think I was most interested in the horror that is his past and his complicated relationship with his daughter and his complicated relationship with addiction and his other compulsions.
Yeah, I think some of the most powerful scenes is with Adam and Russell, and what was that like to direct? Because you're a director and you're directing someone direct a movie, and then also using like a typical direction, but in like a negative light.
I mean, you know, I mean, look, we collaborated on the whole movie together, Mark and I think that was a really fun part. I think we were taking stories that we heard about the making of The Exorcist. I think there was like a little of Billy Freakin in there. There was a little of whatever, fill in the blank, you know, outsized ego film director from the 70s, you know. And I think that ultimately we were just sort of pulling from stories we had heard, our own personal experiences. Look, I'm in no way like the character that Adam played.
Well, that's good to know. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I should be, but I think the truth is that, you know, Adam is really good in the movie. I think he's really strong. And it is one of my favorite moments, that scene between them, when he sort of reads him. Not to give away too much, but I love that scene because also it's kind of inspired by a true story. And even other elements of it that I won't give away. So it was cool to do. And also, I think it's really interesting to see Russell really like talk to that way and sort of that
cut down the size.
Just to see Russell, who's sort of the gladiator, so to speak, the strong hero, be in this really vulnerable position, having things said to Russell that maybe even Russell might feel in real life in some way. I just thought it was a really interesting moment because it had a lot of meta moments.
Yeah. And along those lines, Mark, how early on was Russell involved, and does that change like the script at all? Because, you know, he's got all this presence, and he's really the one without the power in all the relationships in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It did alter some aspects, I think, in the back end of the movie. the first time we met Russell, to even discuss the possibility of him making the movie, I remember he said, like, I'm used to doing roles where I drive the bus. And it's like, well, it's a possession movie and you're possessed, therefore, girl, you're the bus, like it's like there's certain concessions, that can be made in terms of like what, like what makes Russell's sweet spot in terms of like what he does so beautifully, right? What we love him for as an actor. And there are certain things in terms of like the descent and the vulnerability and the woundedness and the kind of I don't think Russell has ever played a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I think that was a really oftentimes a really uncomfortable place to work from. But I think, discomfort is where the really great stuff can really pop out of. And I think that him having to do things that he hadn't done before in terms of vulnerability, this kind of vulnerability, really made him shine in a way that I think he's really wonderful in the movie.
Yeah, it's a really powerful movie. Just real quick, I want to say I like how you shot the stage house. I thought it kind of looked like a dollhouse, which in my head I'm like, there's other people controlling them, which I think is interesting. But I really love the movie, not just because I'm talking to you. So hope people check out The Exorcism.
Well, you have great taste.
Yeah, we were like, we love all that shit.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that as well.
Classic Universal horror.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes,
my
cheap plug. I just interviewed Sarah Karloff, daughter of Boris Karloff. So.
No.
Yeah,
Really?
which was very awesome.
Oh, how was that? Okay, well, we'll have.
It was amazing. Sorry, I know we don't have a lot of time. So.
They're going to throw you to hospitality. Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.